foot to see a dying mother, and I had been told that by the Danube I should find the main railway to take me to Holland. There were kind people who gave me food, and one woman gave me half a mark and wished me Godspeed. Then, on the last day of the year, I came to the river and found many drunkards." "Was that when you resolved to get on one of the river boats?" "Ja, Cornelius. As soon as I heard of the boats I saw where my chance lay. But you might have knocked me over with a straw when I saw you come on shore. That was good fortune, my friend. I have been thinking much about the Germans, and I will tell you the truth. It is only boldness that can baffle them. They are a most diligent people. They will think of all likely difficulties, but not of all possible ones. They have not much imagination. They are like steam engines which must keep to prepared tracks. There they will hunt any man down, but let him trek for open country, and they will be at a loss. Therefore boldness, my friend, for ever boldness. Remember, as a nation they wear spectacles, which means that they are always peering." Peter broke off to gloat over the wedges of geese and the strings of wild swans that were always winging across the plains. His tale had bucked me up wonderfully. Our luck had held beyond all belief, and I had a kind of hope in the business now which had been wanting before. That afternoon, too, I got another fillip. I came on deck for a breath of air, and found it pretty cold after the heat of the engine room. So I called to one of the deckhands to fetch me up my cloak from the cabin, the same I had bought that first morning in the Griff village. "Der Greenmantle," the man shouted up, and I cried, "Yes," but the words seemed to echo in my ears, and long after he had given me the garment I stood staring abstractedly over the bulwarks. His tone had awakened a chord of memory, or, to be accurate, they had given emphasis to what before had been only blurred and vague, for he had spoken the words which Sturm had uttered behind his hand to Gaudian. I had heard something like "Unmantel," and could make nothing of it. Now I was as certain of those words as of my own existence. They had been Grünmantel. Grünmantel, whatever it might be, was the name which Sturm had not meant me to hear, which was some talisman for the task I had proposed, and which was connected in some way with the mysterious Von Einem. This discovery put me in a high fettle. I told myself that, considering the difficulties, I had managed to find out a wonderful amount in a few days. It only shows what a man can do with the slenderest evidence if he keeps chewing and chewing on it. 2 mornings later we lay alongside the quays at Belgrade, and I took the opportunity of stretching my legs. Peter had come ashore for a smoke, and we wandered among the battered riverside streets and looked at the broken arches of the great railway bridge which the Germans were working at like beavers. There was a big temporary pontoon affair to take the railway across, but I calculated that the main bridge would be ready inside a month. It was a clear, cold, blue day, and as one looked south one saw ridge after ridge of snowy hills. The upper streets of the city were still fairly whole, and there were shops open where food could be got. I remember hearing English spoken, and seeing some Red Cross nurses in the custody of Austrian soldiers coming from the railway station. It would have done me a lot of good to have had a word with them. I thought of the gallant people whose capital this had been. Now 3 times they had flung the Austrians back over the Danube, and then had only been beaten by the black treachery of their so-called allies. Somehow that morning in Belgrade gave both Peter and me a new purpose in our task. It was our business to put a spoke in the wheel of this monstrous, bloody juggernaut that was crushing the life out of the little heroic nations. We were just getting ready to cast off when a distinguished party arrived at the quay. There were all kinds of uniforms, German, Austrian, and Bulgarian, and amid them was one stout gentleman in a fur coat and a black felt hat. They watched the barges up anchor, and before we began to jerk into line, I could hear their conversation. The fur coat was talking in English. "I reckon that's pretty good news, General," it said. "If the English have run away from Gallipoli we can use these new consignments for the bigger game. I guess it won't be long before we see the British lion moving out of Egypt with sore paws." They all laughed. "The privilege of that spectacle may soon be ours," was the reply. I did not pay much attention to the talk. Indeed, I did not realize till weeks later that that was the first tidings of the great evacuation of Cape Helles. What rejoiced me was the sight of Blenkiron, as bland as a barber among those swells. Here were two of the missionaries within reasonable distance of their goal. End of chapter 9.